That's right. Enjoy. RMN.
On the first hot day, I created something a little too hot. Now, check it out.
People say you don't know how to let go. But I want you anyway, baby, you're like a drug. I can't get enough of you.
Okay, Jill, welcome to the RMN Podcast. How are you? Jill Jones.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
How is Jill Jones?
Pretty good. Just hanging in there.
Hanging in there.
Like everybody else.
So what's happening with you're basically in LA now, but last time we spoke, you were in New York and so on. But I mean, how's life after the kind of whole Prince? I mean, you're still very much involved in all the Prince stuff and everything. So what's life been like?
Life has been very. I think it's been pretty good. You know, as far as I guess. What do they say? Life is just a big train ride, and there's never really one destination. You may have one thing in your mind, and you just end up going on your journey. And I think for me, I've just been really curious about so many different things and open to trying as many different things as I could possibly do. Maybe a little Epicurean in my lifestyle, in sort of a way.
I mean, it's amazing the amount of creativity that you do. I mean, I've seen all kinds of things that you've been involved in, but I mean, just so people can understand your career and who, all there is to know about you in a sense. But I mean, how did you start out in music, and how did you sort of get involved in that in the first place?
Well, my mother was a musician, and my father, both were musicians, and they performed, and of course they split up, and then later my mom married into the Gordy family, the Motown family.
Wow.
And I was a small child, and then from there I set off to LA because I had been living in Ohio. My mom started managing Tina Marie, and my stepsister in the Gordy family, she discovered Rick James. So we had sort of this house that sort of facilitated all these meetings and these wonderful collaborations. And I think that's where it kind of all began. Tina Marie was living in my family's home. And she and I started writing, and that's where I started. And then from there, we went on tours. I sang backing vocals with her. And that's how I met Prince, because her band was the opening act on his Dirty Mind tour.
Wow.
So, and then from there, I met Prince, and, it's sort of like there's this synchronistic thing that happens when you get on a vibe. It's kind of like maybe surfing, like on a wave, I kind of think, even though I'm not a surfer. But it feels similar to how surfers describe it. It's like I was kind of tubing at that moment, I think, and everything was just working. Yeah. And then going and working with Prince in Minneapolis, he had just started to expand into having the Time and Vanity 6. And I started and then Sheila E., and I was singing backing vocals on their projects. And that ultimately led to him producing one of my records with David Z. And that came out in '87. I also was in Purple Rain as well. And then, of course, the cult favorite, Graffiti Bridge. Yeah. And from there, I think, I spent a lot of time in Europe. After that relationship with Prince, it sort of ceased. It ended because the Graffiti Bridge kind of is a landmark when things were dramatically shifting in the Prince realm. And I think he was trying to get his footing around the whole New Jack Swing coming into the sound of commercial music. Yeah. And so that transition sort of changed a lot of things. I ultimately, like I said, I got married, had a child, recording with a band in Liverpool for a while, had a deal with London Records, and then we got dropped. So it's just, the musician's story. I think that the biggest mistake a musician can make is putting all your eggs in one basket. Sure, you're excited when you get, your deals and stuff, but you have to know that the ride on that it's one big amusement park, but each ride that you're on is a different one, and that's kind of how I see it.
For sure. Just taking you back there, because what you said was really interesting about one particular thing there. Do you think then that when you guys did Graffiti Bridge, that was kind of Prince's way of kind of doing a kind of farewell kind of thing to that particular section of musical journey of himself? Then was that because it had kind of everyone in it. I mean, it had the time and all the people from Purple Rain, obviously, but it had. Was that kind of his way of saying, okay, there's a recorded kind of memory of everything, or do you think it wasn't that well thought through, or?
I don't think it was that well thought through, but it could have been a combination of both of those things that we're speaking of, because on one level, I think he was being pulled into some kind of spirituality issues and was definitely a seeker. So as Rumi says, what you seek is seeking you. And ultimately, I think it kind of would, following that, cushion the blow of the criticism that, the Prince darling suddenly kept getting, because he had Under the Cherry Moon and he received criticism, and then he did Graffiti Bridge. Yeah. I think because Graffiti Bridge, remember, came right after he'd kind of had a real uptick with the whole Batman thing. And I do believe he thought that he had the capacity to rally together all of his friends and create magic like what happened in Purple Rain. The only difference is he maybe didn't have the stamina to do a whole entire film, because that's definitely collaborative, and you need a lot of hats on for that. And as much as he could do, he was also doing the music and the directing and trying to pick out the costumes, and then just and I don't know. So you might be right.
Yeah. No, I mean, just looking through the thing. I mean, Purple Rain was exceptional, and but I mean, when you looked at Under the Cherry Moon, I thought Under the Cherry Moon's the Parade album was outstanding, and
I did too.
I thought that was actually, well, personally, it's my favourite album he did. But then he moved on to the Graffiti Bridge album. Seemed like more of an eclectic album than it did a kind of film soundtrack album. Whereas Purple Rain was Purple Rain, and Under the Cherry Moon was Parade, obviously, but I kind of felt that Graffiti Bridge was, he had Telvin Campbell, and he had all these other artists that he was kind of developing at the time as well, so it just kind of felt more eclectic than anything else, but
and you've got to remember, he also had his label then. It was Paisley Park officially, and that was, I think, the businessman side was in more operational mode than the artist, because he was like, okay, Kevin's going to have this song, and now I have to do something for Mavis. And even though it was maybe how he used to like those old films of Fred Astaire and the whole, let's all put on a show together, there still was this whole business side to it, and he had different people in his ears, because he was also trying to make his label profitable. And unfortunately, that, I think, is what took the sails and the wind out of Graffiti Bridge, the project. And I think he had to get back to his heart's understanding of what its real purpose was in music, and maybe not trying to compete, because we were all very different people by the time we filmed that from Purple Rain.
Yeah, I'm really interested in you though, because you know, I mean, Prince is fascinating because you know he's Prince, but what kind of cultivated me to you and what you do is that you came with a very different approach to the whole thing. I mean, the artist that you became. I mean, even in Purple Rain, I know that you're playing a part in that particular movie, but I mean, you were almost the kind of Marilyn Monroe of the film, and you know, I mean, even though you had Apollonia there, Apollonia wasn't Jill Jones by any stretch of the imagination, you know. So I mean, how did it feel kind of being around in that time and I don't know, being sort of iconic really, because when that movie came out, everyone wanted to know who's that girl, and you know, I mean, that was a big thing.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize that at the time that this was happening, and I sort of felt like the oddball because, you know, I did have that bleached blonde hair, and I did draw a lot of attention being in a really small, straight-laced town such as Minneapolis. Yeah. So getting used to some of that, a little bit of attention was really odd for me. Okay. But the film itself was definitely, the character was my personality, and I did like that. I thought that seeing how it was based around how I was or how I responded to things was pretty accurate at that time.
Did you have to fight to get recordings, or you know, or were you working on songs and kind of coming in with your own ideas for things, or how did it work? Because I mean, you've spent way more time with Prince than I have, but I've spent a bit of time with Prince, and I know how difficult it is to get through to him. So how did you manage to do that? I mean, because for all the other students that are out there or people that are out there that are trying to make it in the game, I mean, it sounds easy because, oh, well, Jill was with Prince, but it wouldn't have been easy at all. It would have been difficult. It would have been really tough, I would imagine, to get the attention, to get the song in place and get his sort of focus on you. And how much did that stop your creativity, or did it make you more creative? How did that work at that time?
I sometimes think it must have been really difficult for the men more than it was for women, because Prince really enjoyed female company more than men, it seems.
That's what was wrong. I should have put on a wig or something.
You should have, a dress.
Yeah.
Some high heels. I know that's not very PC or however, but that's the way it was. I mean, you know, definitely it's rumored, you know, and it's not rumored that most of the people who worked with him did have some kind of intimate relationship with him, and yes, that did occur. However, not every session was geared around, you know, that aspect. For me, I was always I felt like I was perpetually on call, constantly in the middle of the night to come and sing somebody's, you know, these weren't booty calls. These were work calls to show up at 3 a.m. to record a song. And it was difficult for me because a lot of times I'd lay practice tracks for other artists that he was going to give to, so they would learn how to sing things or phrase it or whatever until they got their sea legs. I did a lot of that for the Sheila E. stuff with Glamorous Life, because she'd never really utilized her voice in such a way, and she was a newbie as far as on the singing level. Yeah. But it also made Prince incredibly vulnerable to people who just target him specifically, okay, if I date him, I'm going to get a record. That made it really difficult for those of us who were really working, and you'd see somebody come along and to just try to monopolize his attention 100%. But he'd still end up calling, you know, his main people who could get the job done musically. The intimate levels never surpassed the qualifications of doing the job in the studio. I just want that to be clear. Music would always take priority over any physical person. So, I think for me it was difficult because me singing on everybody's songs kind of created a little bit of confusion because we didn't really know who I was, how I could sing anything, jazz, opera stuff, because I did have an opera teacher at one point. It got a little confusing. He would hear so many different aspects of my voice that I don't think he knew, and neither did I. We did like some little punk songs. We tried so many things. Yeah. And then finally arrived. When he went to do Under the Cherry Moon was when I really and I moved to New York is when I really got the time to work on the songs.
It's incredible though, because how do you define, Jill Jones to the Prince fans, or to the Jill Jones fans, I should say even. Who made the decisions then of, okay, this is how I'm going to sound, this is what I'm going to look like, what we were talking about earlier, really. Because the first time I was kind of made aware of you as an artist, I was quite surprised, and what I was surprised by was when I saw the actual, heard the music, saw the videos and or the bits and pieces that you did, and then I thought, why didn't he use you in Purple Rain? Because that would have just seemed, but you've explained that now because you were doing all the singing for everyone else. but who made the decisions then for you? Like I say, Jill, the kind of point I'm trying to kind of get to here is, from your point of view, working with someone as big as that and being under that umbrella, how did you kind of get your own identity then? How did you manage to get through to that?
I think I got my own identity, a little taste of it, when I went to London for a while, and I also lived in Paris. And I think that it really was the sensibility of the European vibe that sort of kind of captured me. It wasn't this filtered, manufactured thing that Prince sort of carved out. You're going to be in lingerie, you're going to do this is who you are, the bad girl, the good girl, the, tough girl. These were archetypes that America wasn't really used to, and they're still not used to intelligent. They are, but they aren't. And I think I'm finding it here in America that with all of this Me Too stuff and everything, that women, not to flag anybody off or put anyone down, I think there's a definite struggle from Puritanism to who women sense their own empowerment. I don't believe in empowering yourself through the victim route. Which I find a lot happens here. My album was protested by this type of energy because of there were children in a video that they thought was provocative. Children exploring, it was sort of a takeoff of 8.5, Fellini with the kids, and Louis Buñuel. But it was really alarming to me and Prince that how anyone could see in the midst of innocence something so dark that wasn't even on our radar. Now, if we wanted to get, slutty, sorry, I know many people don't like that word. But that's what it was. We called that too in America. It was so black and white for people to see you in panties and a bra or lingerie and just to throw you into these boxes like Vanity or the other girls. Yeah. You could catch us on the bus afterwards with rollers in our hair and whatever else. These were not things that, it's just been very interesting for me. And even when Prince was expanding that, because he even started to see what was happening from the trips in London, Brussels, Germany, all these different Paris. Yeah. The clothing concepts, it wasn't a label here that is an absolute. For some reason, Europeans and the British have a sense of flux, that you can change, you can evolve, and it isn't going to define the rest of your life. But in America, it does, and that was what was really tricky. Yeah, because you have to be a one-trick pony here, and that makes it hard for artists to grow.